Queer and creepy to the core, spooky tales and ancient lore. Knock, 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 who's at the door? It's Louise and Tim with itty bitty horror.
Ooh, like that beat.
Like the beat, sugar?
I do.
Okay, anyway.
How do I turn this off, sugar? I know.
Okay. Anyway, Timmy boy.
I thought that was going to play the whole episode.
The whole episode will have that played. Well, everybody, welcome to the Itty Bitty Horror Podcast with Luis and Tim. In this podcast, we discuss everything from horror movies to the scariest tales out there, with a little bit of a Dominican Republic humor. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, what does that mean?
I have no idea. But Tim, you know what we're doing today?
What?
We're going to head straight to the Dominican Republic to get into some of the country's darkest folklore.
Oh.
Now, Tim, yeah, I know. Well, in the past, we've talked about all types of folklore from La Llorona from Mexico, demonic chickens from Vietnam, Hungary, and Colombia, and of course, our favorite, the Jersey Devil.
Oh, yes. And don't forget
Appalachian cryptids, exactly. And so many folktales out there, so we decided, I don't know, I just thought the Dominican Republic would be a kind of cool country to kind of focus on.
Well, it could be. And I mean, a lot of people like to go vacation there, so in a way, this can serve as a warning.
Yes, a warning for all of you little, dark, what is it called? Dark tourism? Where people go into certain countries to explore the darkest parts of that country or whatever.
Oh no. Is that a political topic of some kind, or is it more just dark as in, crime neighborhoods or something like that?
No. It's more like people who go into, let's say for example, you go to New Orleans, right? But you want to go into the darkest stories that have that has made New Orleans famous. Right, and then you go into maybe certain areas that you probably shouldn't be going to, or you know what I mean. Or it also just means people who go on vacations to spots that are, just haunted. Kind of sometimes I do that. You know what I mean? But I don't know if that's what I just call dark tourism. I don't know. Maybe our listeners can guide us, and they're gonna be like, "You guys are wrong."
Well, if that's the case, then I feel like New Orleans is also a hotspot for dark tourism because it's one of the most haunted cities.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the reason I chose Dominican Republic is because I'm reading this book called You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom. It's a really good book so far. I'm maybe 20, 25 pages out from finishing it, or almost done, excuse me, without spoiling anything in case folks want to read it. It's basically a story about this Dominican American family that goes down to the Dominican Republic because they want to, they're going there because they're reading a will. Right, and some stuff starts to happen. So think of it like a mix of Knives Out with maybe The Exorcist or something.
Oh, that's a scary combo. I was going to say, I'm also reading a book, not that you asked.
Yes, Tim, what are you reading?
Well, I'm trying to read The Stand by Stephen King, which many people know.
Wait, I think I have that book around here somewhere.
Are you searching now?
I have The Outsider.
Well, I was going to say The Stand is an extremely thick book, and I'm thinking my work is really cut out for me in this case. Also, it's about a pandemic, and I think I told you this before, but I find after COVID that pandemic is a little bit less of a scary word than I think it sounded pre-2020. Don't you feel like?
Yeah, I know there were a lot of movies out there. Don't remember the titles, but I feel like they would be exposure or
right,
the disease or whatever, right? And you start looking at these and they start going the whole world is going to collapse, which is kind of did to a certain extent, but
to an extent, but still,
yeah, because we're not everybody. I know that people were essential workers and they actually had to be there, and I know a lot of people died, obviously, so we're not making light of that. But for the very privileged people out there who oh, now I have to work from home and I get to get coffee a block away. You know what I mean? It's
right.
That mentality or that experience has diminished the actual awful things that did happen.
Right. And I feel like, when you thought of a pandemic pre-2020, and if anyone listening to this is really young and doesn't recall even thinking about that, just bear with us. But I mean, I feel like pre-2020, when I thought of a pandemic, I pictured hazmat suits and the sky is green and it sounded like something awful and horrible, or a zombie apocalypse of some kind, mad cow disease, you know what I mean? And now I'm oh, COVID, that was that thing that affected us. And yeah, like you said, in retrospect, I mean, it was bad, but it also feels somehow more approachable than what I picture earlier. So you know?
Yeah, I mean, especially for the people who have the ability to work from home and whatnot. But then you have like the really, obviously we're not going to get political right now, but the people who are just like very, very like, I will not wear masks and you need to open this Dollar Tree right now and I'm not wearing a mask. Like these people, the privilege that they have. But anyway, you're right, Tim. Well, I'm glad you're reading that book. I'm glad you're reading at all. I thought you were illiterate, but that's another story.
Excuse me?
Just kidding. Well, Tim, because of the topics that we're covering today, to me, all the topics that we just discussed, right, like the Llorona, demonic chickens, etc., to me, this implies that you are our resident folklorist.
Me? Why would I be?
So with that context in mind, why do you think these folktales and myths stick around for like hundreds of years? And what is it about a legend that makes people keep telling them?
Well, I mean, I'll answer this very seriously because, I mean, we have talked about this before, but I feel like a big part of legends is there's something true in their telling each time. There's something that's kind of a feeling that resonates with the people or the culture or the subculture that believes in it. And, it keeps getting reinforced because, in a sense, we are a culture, well, not a culture, we're a species of storytellers. We tell stories by the fire. We tell stories to our kids. Those kids tell it to their kids. You think of like, La Llorona, for example. It works because the loss of a child and a mother's anguish are kind of universally devastating feelings that we can all relate to, right? So, and then of course we all remember those kinds of stories that we were told as kids that, scared us into behaving well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's like, it basically, these stories fill a gap where facts aren't enough, right? So, like, why do children go missing near rivers? Why do you hear crying in the dark or whatever? You have these stories that you can now tell to kind of back it up a little bit.
Yeah, I would say so. So that's my answer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with that in mind, let's talk about today's episode, Timmy boy.
Okay, I'm excited.
Yes, today we're going to cover 3 different creatures from Dominican folklore, each one working on a completely different level. A demon summoned through a pact with a devil, a woman in the mountains nobody can ever quite catch, and a man who isn't always fully a man once the sun goes down, Timmy boy.
Oh, sounds like you.
Yeah, I'm never a man, and when the sun goes down, I turn into a slut. I turn into a...
Oh, no, bleep that.
And if you want more information or other stories related to today's topic, then we'll be releasing more of these on our Substack, so make sure to follow us there for even more spooky tales from the Dominican Republic. You can find the link to our Substack in the show notes or under Itty Bitty Horror Podcast on Substack. Tim, are you ready to hop on a bicycle built for 2, bike all the way to Miami, swim past the Bahamas, Cuba, and Haiti before ending up on the shores of Monte Cristi, hop on another bike, and make our way into the jungles of the Dominican Republic?
Oh, I want to stop at some of those places first.
I want to stop there. I want to stop at the gift shop.
The Dominican Republic sits on an island that has been fought over, colonized, enslaved, and reshaped so many times that by now, the line between history and folklore has almost completely disappeared. Taíno belief was here first. Then Spanish Catholicism arrived, forced onto the population that survived. Then West African spiritual tradition came with the people who were brought here in chains and refused quietly to let it die. None of these traditions replaced the others. They just settled on top of each other, layer after layer, until the stories that came out of the other end belonged fully to all 3 at once. That's part of what makes this island's folklore feel so different from most places. It isn't one tradition repeating the same monster with small variations. It's centuries of trauma, survival, and belief, all pressed together so tightly that nobody can really separate them anymore. In the countryside especially, that history never really went inside. It stayed outside, in the dark, where people still live close enough to the land that the land still feels like it's watching them back. Farmers who worked the same soil for generations passed down more than crops and cattle. They passed down warnings, reasons to stay inside after dark, reasons not to wander certain roads alone, reasons not to trust a stranger's face too quickly, because sometimes, according to what's been repeated for hundreds of years now, that face isn't entirely telling the truth. Some of what got passed down explains sudden fortune nobody can account for. Some of it explains why certain mountain paths never felt safe, no matter how many times you walked them before. Some of it explains why a person you'd known your whole life could suddenly seem like someone else entirely once the sun went down. None of it was ever really meant to be taken as simple entertainment. These stories function as instructions. Stay close to home. Don't trust wealth that appeared too fast. Watch the people around you carefully, because you never really know who or what is standing next to you in the dark. Historians who study this folklore now, digging through old oral histories collected across the countryside, keep finding the same thing underneath nearly all of it. These aren't just scary stories parents told to keep their children obedient. They're centuries of colonization, slavery, and survival, folded into a shape simple enough to be whispered around a fire and passed down to the next generation without ever needing to be written down at all. Tonight we're going into 3 of those stories. Each one comes from a different corner of that same tangled history, and each one is still being told, right now, in villages and mountain towns across the Dominican Republic, exactly the way it has always been.
Now that we know a little bit of, the history of the Dominican Republic and how they have all the stories almost tied together, and and also what we discussed in the past, earlier in the episode about how people do it to fill in gaps in stories. And Are you ready? Are our listeners ready? And listen in as we tell 3 stories.
Ooh, I like how you went really serious at the end of that sentence there.
So our first story, we're heading into the rural countryside of the Dominican Republic, where there's a specific kind of luck nobody actually trusts, the kind that shows up overnight with no real explanation behind it. This is a story of El Bacá de Interamericana. In the city of Santiago, in the county's northern Chibao region, there was once a garment factory called Interamericana. It was founded in 1986 by a local industrialist named Ángel Rosario, who started small, a leather workshop, before switching to garment production and landing steady contracts sewing casual pants for Levi Docker's brand. The orders kept growing. By 1994, the company employed 5,000 workers. By the end of the decade, an entirely new section of Santiago's trade zone had been built just to house its operations, and employment climbed towards 10,000. This isn't folklore. Not now, Timmy. This part is documented business history, covered in a peer-reviewed academic study published in the journal New West Indian Guide, written by historians Lauren Derby and Marian Werner, based on dozens of interviews with the plant's own former workers. In late 2002, rumors started moving through the factory, rumors that something evil was living inside it. According to the workers interviewed years later, it started with a string of deaths that never quite got explained. One worker, describing himself as an 11-year veteran of the plant, told researchers he personally witnessed a co-worker fall from a ladder and break his neck. Around the same time, a young, apparently healthy mechanic simply dropped dead on the factory floor. The same month, the cousin of that same 11-year veteran, another worker in the plant, died mysteriously in his sleep at home. And in one of the darkest accounts collected, a young evangelical worker who seemed, by every outward measure, to be thriving, savings in the bank, a motorcycle, a girlfriend in New York, withdrew all of his money one day, gave it and the motorcycle to his mother, and hanged himself from a tree.
Oh, snap. Okay. Sorry. Is that a bad response?
How dare you, first of all. No pun intended. Sorry, listeners. We forgive Tim's crass. Please forgive us for Tim's crass, is what I mean.
My crassness? Well, but I'm reacting correctly. I mean, that's a sad thing to happen. And I said, oh, snap. That's like my surprise.
Yeah, because he snapped his neck.
Oh, I didn't mean, oh, snap, like as a pun. Oh,
I said,
God.
And he hanged himself from a tree, and you go, oh, snap.
Listen, that's you putting that in there. That was not what I was thinking, okay? I just want that on the record, listeners.
Then came the blood. Multiple former workers independently describing finding blood inside the plant, soaked into stacks of freshly sewn pants waiting to be packaged, and pooling in the bathroom drains, thick enough to clog them. One worker who spent 4 years at the factory told researchers he saw it himself more than once, and dismissed the idea that a rat or some ordinary accident could explain that much blood spread across that many bundles of clothing. The plant ran a night shift, and that's where the strangest reported sighting took place. According to multiple workers, security guards on duty one Sunday, when the building should have been completely empty, watched every single light in the massive factory turn on at once, all together. In the light, they say, stood a small silent figure, a small black man with a small frame who couldn't speak. Not long after, the guards abandoned their posts entirely, leaving their long-barreled rifles propped up against the wall on their way out. The fear spread well beyond the plant itself. Workers began quitting outright rather than risk another shift. One woman recalled being invited to apply for an opening at the factory and refusing, telling her friend she was simply too afraid to work there. Eventually, management couldn't keep the night shift staffed at all and had to eliminate it. The story even reached social media. A well-known investigative journalist named Esteban Rosario, famous in Santiago for exposing corruption among the region's elite, began covering it, and at least one worker later claimed, only half joking, that the rumor mysteriously died down right around the time the company allegedly paid Rosario off. Here's where the story splits, though. Workers from the city of Santiago itself tended to blame the factory's actual owner, Ángel Rosario, for striking the pact. But workers who'd migrated in from the rural border region, men like Aberecio Alcantara, a tailor from a small frontier town called Panica, who rose to become a shop floor inspector at the plant, told researchers a different version entirely. In their retelling, the Bacá belonged not to the owner, but to a plant manager named Chicho Rivas, a fellow migrant from the border region who had risen from an ordinary sewer to a position of real power at breakneck speed. For Abercio and his rural co-workers, that fast rise by someone from their own community needed an explanation just as badly as the deaths did. Not everyone at the plant believed any of it either. One worker, a 20-year veteran named Eusebio, gave researchers a very different read on the whole situation. He argued the entire rumor was, whether anyone realized it or not, a way of describing something real, the sheer exploitation of the job itself. The Bacá is Interamericana, he told them directly. The company, the owner, for Eusebio, the actual evil wasn't supernatural at all. It was a workforce being pushed harder than they could physically sustain, dressed up in a story that let people talk about it safely. Interamericana finally closed for good in December of 2006. Whatever was actually responsible for the deaths, the blood, and the lights turning on in an empty building on a Sunday, it's still one of the strangest, most well-documented modern collisions between old-world folklore and a genuinely ordinary, everyday workplace anywhere in the Caribbean. Okay, so Tim, as mentioned, the legend basically says that if you make a pact with El Bacá,
Yes.
right, you get stuff really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you suddenly are protected from all evils, somebody's trying to kill you and then they no longer are, or if you are so in debt and then suddenly you become extremely rich overnight, it's that famous saying, you're making a deal with the devil.
Right. And I feel like it's also connected to the fear of the other shoe dropping if something goes well in your life.
Yeah. No, I can totally see that. Yeah, where you think it's okay, everything's going so well, something's going to happen. But the thing is, when I was reading about El Bacá, one of the things is depending on the deal that the Bacá makes with you, it could say every year you have to provide a soul to me, right? Or if it gets worse, you have to do it daily.
Right.
And apparently, if you are not able to meet your deal or whatever, it'll start taking people from your life from you until it goes down to you. And then if, what did it say? And then if it gets rid of you, it'll go out to your friends and family. But let's say hypothetically, none of that existed, in terms of, you had nobody, friends and family are all gone. So Bacá is oh, well, what do I do now? Basically what they do, El Bacá, is it starts to curse the land of where it happened. And I think that's what some of the people are saying, in the beginning, Interamericana, the factory, was cursed itself, if not the owner. If it wasn't the owner, then it was the place itself. They shut down, they didn't make any shitty money anymore, and now El Bacá's there kicking a can. It's oh yeah.
So what does El Bacá do or is it El Bacá?
El Bacá?
What does El Bacá do when it's taken over a place? It just kind of hangs out there?
Yeah, he opens Starbucks.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah, he opens a Starbucks and basically starts selling different types of coffee from, the Dominican Republic, the beans that they sell there.
Oh, Starbucks is taken over by El Bacá, we think.
Yes, so don't
Maybe.
ever drink at Starbucks, people. But
Yes.
just kidding. We don't want to get sued by Starbucks.
Oh, yeah. But, pizza's good too.
Okay, Tim, if a Bacá showed up at your front door tonight offering you unlimited money in exchange for one soul in the family, Who would you choose? And you have to pick or it takes you.
Oh my gosh. It has to be someone in my immediate family or my friend family.
Bitch, I know where you're going with this.
What makes you think it would be you?
Okay, your friend family is included.
Okay, it would be
And
you. No, let me think. Who would I have it take? Can it take a pet of mine? Because you can have them.
Okay, sure. A family dog could be part of it, or a family pet, yes. So
Yeah, our family dog. Take it, El Bacá.
is that family dog still alive?
Actually, we never had dogs. We only had cats. But it can have a cat. That's okay.
Yeah, but do you currently have a cat?
Well, actually we do, but now that I'm thinking about her specifically, I would be very sad if El Bacá took her. What exactly does it mean when El Bacá takes her? What happens to her?
It takes her to the underworld.
Oh, man. Is she still... Does that mean she's possessed, or does that mean she's just gone? I can't see her.
No, she's gone. She's being dragged to hell.
Oh, man. Well, this is a sad scenario.
Okay, but whose cat? You don't have cats, so whose cat would this be? So I can tell your sister or mother. It's like, hey, Tim just damned your cat to hell.
Oh, man. Well, my brother's taking care of this cat right now, as a matter of fact.
Well, there you go. You'll lose a cat, and it'll be all because of you.
Oh, no. Now I feel bad. Okay, no, it could take one of your cats.
Leave my cats alone. Anyway, let's move on to the next story, Timmy boy.
All right. That was a sad scenario anyway. For our second story, we are heading into the mountains to a woman with backward-facing feet that make her completely impossible to track, and a legend that goes back a lot further and means a lot more than most people realize. This is the story of La Ciguapa. Deep in the mountains of the Dominican Republic, there's a woman that generations of parents have warned their children never to look at directly. Long black hair, falling all the way past her waist, covering skin the color of gold, eyes dark and almond-shaped, a face people describe, without exception, as hypnotically beautiful, and feet that face backward. Not injured, not deformed, built that way, on purpose, so that anyone who tries to track her by her footprints ends up walking in exactly the wrong direction, away from her, while believing they're closing in. They call her La Ciguapa, and the rule, passed down for well over a century, is simple. If she sees you first, you disappear, permanently. Her story doesn't start where most people assume it does. To understand where she actually comes from, you have to go back to 1492, when Columbus landed on this island and named the whole thing La Española, the Spanish one. It became the very first place in the Americas that Europeans colonized, and almost immediately, it became a place people fought to escape. In 1521, less than 30 years after Columbus arrived, enslaved Wolof captives brought from West Africa to work Diego Columbus's own plantation rose up in one of the earliest recorded slave rebellions anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. They fled into the mountains, the same mountains La Ciguapa has haunted ever since. That's not a coincidence historians take lightly. Enslaved Africans and indigenous people alike hid in those exact peaks for generations, forming hidden communities the law could never quite reach, a space nobody could track, a place where the rules of the plantation simply stopped applying. The first time anyone wrote her story down was 1866, over 300 years after that first rebellion, in a short novel by a colonel and journalist named Francisco Javier Angulo Guridi. In his version, a young man named Jacinto falls in love with a farmer's daughter, Marcelina. The two agree to marry, and walking home one night, Marcelina sees a dark shape step out of the trees. La Ciguapa screams. Marcelina screams back, and whatever passed between them in that moment was enough to put Marcelina into a fever that killed her 3 days later.
Okay, can I just add, imagine you're walking down, the little mountain area thingy, and then you see a really creepy woman, even though she's like beautiful, but her feet are backwards.
Right. Automatically, that would terrify me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and then she screamed at you, and you're like,
Jeez.
bitch. Don't think so. And you scream back, and then you die 3 days later. You're like, you would have done that.
I don't think if someone's just screamed at me with backwards feet, I would scream back like I'm in a competition. I think I would run the hell the other way.
Exactly. If a demonic looking thing, I mean, she's supposed to look beautiful, I know, but her feet are backwards. That's enough for me.
Yes, and she has long hair like the Ring, so.
Yeah. If she screams at me, you know what? I probably would die, because I would just go up to her and be like, excuse me, ma'am, little missy. And then I would grab her and throw her down a well and be like, now get the fuck out of here. Like,
oh my God. The confidence to just throw her down the nearest well.
Yeah, then I turn and I'm like, yeah, that's right, bitch. And then I get a stroke and die right there.
So La Ciguapa would still get you, even though you throw her down a well.
Yeah, and then when I get to heaven or hell, they're gonna be like, name. And I'm like,
name. Are they still checking names even in hell?
Yeah, they have to make sure that if you go to hell, they want to make sure that you, A, were not sent there by mistake, and B, they also have to keep track and say like, okay, well, we don't have enough space. You're gonna have to share a room with, that Dahmer guy.
Oh no.
And oh, don't say. I know. I'm trying to say somebody else.
The deepest circle of hell reserved for.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't think of anybody. So yeah. So I go there, and they have to keep tabs to make sure that they have enough space for you. It's not infinite space, is it?
Well, I think it is, but I don't know. Who knows?
Well, it's hell, so it's like they don't care. They're gonna have you all together, cluttered, and
well, that's my point. Why do they need to keep track? It's like that's where the leftovers go. Whereas heaven is more of it like an exclusive club. They're gonna take down every name.
Yeah. Well, back to my main point, Tim.
No, let's stay on mine.
Yeah. What I was to say is like I want to be like, oh, my name is Luis, Mr. Demon Man. It's like, okay. Oh, I see here that you yelled at La Ciguapa. I'm like, yeah, but she yelled at me. He's like, yeah. You must be really fucking stupid. This is why you're here. It's like, you don't fuck with our demons. I'm like,
oh my
sorry.
God.
It's like, you know what? Because you're so apologetic, we're going to send you straight to heaven. And they send me to heaven. I'm going to be up there. And then St. Peter's going to be like, name. And I'm going to be like, Luis. Like, oh, yes, you're right here. Yes. Come on in, baby boy.
And baby boy, St. Peter calls you. I think it's kind of funny that in hell, they're like, you screamed at one of our demons. How dare you? Like, what else would you do?
When you're scared, you gotta be a little scallywag.
Yeah. What a good point. Okay. Guridi never met La Ciguapa. What he actually was afraid of was something else entirely. He'd grown up in the shadow of slave rebellion and resistance, and by the time he sat down to write her story, the newly independent Dominican Republic was actively trying to build a national identity that pushed blackness and indigenous heritage to the margins. Scholars who have studied his work point out that the town of La Ciguapa in Cuba was itself a known center of anti-slavery resistance, the exact same region where Guridi spent 30 years of his life before coming home to fight for Dominican independence. So when Guridi wrote about a beautiful woman living wild in the mountains, someone who punishes you for simply looking at her, he wasn't inventing a monster out of nothing. He was encoding a fear. Fear of resistance. Fear of black and indigenous people who couldn't be tracked, couldn't be caught, couldn't be controlled by a colonial power that badly needed them to be. La Ciguapa became a warning wrapped around an entire population the new nation wanted to erase from its own story. For most of the last century and a half, that's the version that stuck. A predator to fear, a monster in the trees. But in the last several years, Afro-Dominican writers and artists have started asking a very different question about her. Not what she's taken from people who wandered too close, but what was taken from her. Poet Elizabeth Acevedo reimagines La Ciguapa not as a monster at all, but as a woman formed on a slave ship. Someone stepping onto an auction block that nobody would buy, because nobody could even bring themselves to look in her eye. Performer Josefina Baez has carried her forward into the present day entirely. La Ciguapa riding the subway, cutting her hair to blend in, working a factory job for less than minimum wage just to survive in a new country. Scholar Omaris Zamora, who spent years researching this figure, puts it simply, La Ciguapa was never really about the woman in the mountains at all. She's about who gets to belong somewhere. and who's forced to keep moving forever because nowhere will fully claim them. Which is maybe the most unsettling part of the whole legend once you actually sit with it. For over 150 years, the story warned people, don't look at her, don't get close, don't let yourself be pulled toward the thing in the trees. Nobody ever stopped to ask why she was the one running.
I was going to say that there's a lot of stories as well about how the Black and indigenous people, who live in the mountains just also made up the story to scare off like these really, really racist, awful people. So they wouldn't go into the mountains, right?
Well, kind of makes sense from a certain angle, right?
Yeah, of course. Like I would totally believe it, right? But having said that, I'm going to give you a little hypothetical. I'm going to give you a hypothetical after each story instead of doing one at the end. How about that?
Okay, let's hear it. Why not? Yeah.
Well, let's say Ciguapa is, it's obviously described as this beautiful woman with nice breasts. Right?
I think it's a long black hair. No, I don't remember breasts, but anyway.
Oh, okay. And if you're walking in the rainforest and, you see her and you're like, mamacita, come here.
I don't think. Okay, well, anyway.
Would you say that, or would you try to fix her feet? And do you think that's why she's upset?
I look like a damn podiatrist to you.
Yeah. I say so. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not a podiatrist. I would not try to fix her feet. We go down to her feet like, oh, let me just fix this real quick.
Snap.
Snap. I get up on the other side.
Screams at you and then you scream back. I was like, hey, I'm trying to help you. Then you go to hell.
Yeah. Well, I like to think I'd go to heaven despite snapping her feet, but...
Yeah, you mama. You ain't going to heaven.
Well, when you put it like that...
I don't know. I feel like if I did see her out in the woods, I'd be like saying the same thing I always say, which is like, feet don't fail me now, but at the same time, she's going to be like, feet? You said feet? How dare you bring that up? And then she runs backwards, which means she's running towards me, right?
Oh, no, please, no.
Well, for our third and final story, we're going back to the countryside, this time to a place where some men apparently aren't fully men at all once the sun goes down, just like me. This is the story of El Galipote. Somewhere in the mountains around San Juan de la Maguana, a region in the Dominican Republic considered, even today, the country's spiritual capital for sorcery and faith healing. There's a belief that some men aren't fully men at all. Not always. Definitely not at night.
Morgan Freeman, what are you doing here?
Got hired again for another shift.
No, get out of here.
Okay. They call him El Galipote. Sometimes Zangano, sometimes Lugaru, a name that comes directly from the French Loup-garou, the werewolf, and the legend traces back centuries, possibly as far as the 1600s or 1700s, to the same region as San Juan. Unlike the Bacá, which is granted through a deal with the devil, most tellings agree that the Galipote isn't created exactly through a pact at all. He's born that way. Some people, according to the belief, simply come into the world already carrying the ability to transform into a dog, a bird, sometimes even a stranger. Ordinary objects sitting along the road that a traveler might walk right past without a second thought, never realizing what's actually watching them. When a Galipote takes the form of a dog specifically, some traditions give that version its own separate name, Loup-garou, tying it directly back to old European werewolf folklore that made its way across the Atlantic and took root in the Dominican countryside. The folklore doesn't treat the Galipote gently. He's described consistently as cruel and violent, a being who takes real pleasure in leading night travelers astray, frightening them, causing accidents, bringing misfortune down on anyone who's crossed them. And he's dangerous in a very specific and very frustrating way.
And very frustrating.
Well, yeah, because, well, if you let me finish, I would say bullets don't hurt him, okay?
Oh, that is frustrating. Yeah.
You were like, a Galipote hunter, and a Galipote comes up and is like, hey! And you're like, oh shit, I found him! And you shoot him like the way you would a werewolf with a silver whatever bullet. It doesn't get hurt. Wouldn't you be frustrated?
I would be, especially if I was Buffy the Galipote hunter.
Yes. They should make a show about that, and you should be the star.
Oh, me? Really?
And you can wear like a little blonde wig as well.
My dream.
Ordinary weapons don't hurt him. Whatever he is, physical force isn't the way to stop him. You stop him with poppers.
Yeah, leave that in. That'll be great.
Some of the older, darker versions of this legend go even further, describing the Galipote as something that fed on the blood of children at night to sustain its own unnatural life. It's the kind of detail that shows up less in the softer, tourist-friendly retellings and more in the versions still being passed down quietly in rural communities. The kind of story a grandmother tells specifically to keep a child close to home after dark. That fear hasn't fully faded either. In some parts of the country, the belief runs deep enough that people still won't travel certain roads at night without protection. A wooden cross, salt, blessed water, a specific charm or prayer passed down through the family. In some communities, parents still tie a small red string around a newborn's wrist, a gesture of protection that predates Christianity on the island entirely, meant to ward off exactly this kind of danger before a child is even old enough to understand what it's being protected from. And if you ever find yourself lost in the dark mountain road near San Juan, and the healer, a curandero, happens to be nearby, tradition says that's exactly who you want. They're believed to be among the only people capable of countering a Galipote's power directly, using prayer, ritual, and remedies passed down through a tradition that blends Spanish Catholicism.
I thought your family was part of the Spanish Catholicism.
Yes, with African and indigenous spiritual practice all at once. Which means the real warning underneath this legend was never really about dogs or birds or strange shapes on the road. It was about the people standing right next to you and the ones you record podcasts with. You heard that, Timmy boy?
No, please, no.
Okay, Tim. So, let's say you are a Galipote,
Okay,
right?
sure.
And you decided today that you're a tree. You're like, yeah, I feel like being a tree today. And then as you're there, just like, stretching your roots and your branches, and you're like, oh, such a beautiful day. And then somebody's having you see somebody running towards you, and you're like, oh, what the hell? And somebody's having a full-on breakdown crying against you. And they're like, why, God, why won't he love me?
Oh,
Of course,
God.
they think you're a tree, right? Are you gonna stay in character the whole time, right? Or would you whisper to them like, what's wrong, sugar pie?
Well, I like to think that I would become kind of like the giving tree, and I would start, handing them things and let them hang out in my branches and let them make love behind me,
Yeah, carving their initials on your ass.
Yeah, on my ass, yeah. So, I'd like to think that's what I would do, even if I was Galipote.
Well, but what if you started doing that and then somebody reacts like a human? And she goes, oh shit, it's talking! And then it lights the whole forest on fire just to kill you.
Whoa, okay. Well, first of all, I'd report them immediately to Smokey the Bear, and I'd be like, arsonist over there.
Yeah. Are you gonna shapeshift back into like a person and be like, hey, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I'd shapeshift into a park ranger all of a sudden and be like, hey, that's from you. Only you can prevent what you just did.
And then just take out an axe and chop her head off.
Yeah.
Now you ain't gonna cry about nothing. Ain't got nothing to cry about, bitch.
Yeah, that's how I would do it. A perfectly, reasonable response.
Okay, Tim, we've come to the end of the episode. What are your overall thoughts on today's 3 stories? So we talked about El Bacá de Interamericana, the one you make deals with.
Right.
The backward walking, back-footed woman, La Ciguapa.
Check.
We talked about the transforming man who turns into things called El Galipote. What are your overall thoughts on these 3 specific stories?
I would say, number 1, right off the bat, I think La Ciguapa, for me, something about her long black hair and the fact that she's mysteriously beautiful makes me think she's the most distinctive of all 3. Would you agree with me?
Spoken like a of course you want to stand the diva.
I love a diva, even if she's a ghost.
And she has backward feet, and she's beautiful. She has long black hair.
Well, you know what? I would say that her feet being backward makes her not classically beautiful, but just like Cher, she still kind of has a beauty all her own. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of my main takeaway. And I mean, I feel like we also learned a little bit of history, which we do periodically do actually on this podcast, right?
We like to inform those of you who may not know. And if you do know, because you're like, I'm actually an actual folklorist, and also I do folklorico, and I also like folk song. Anyway,
folk songs of Bob Dylan
and folk horror movies. So how dare you? I know these topics like the back of my foot. And if you motherfuckers are getting it all wrong, well, guess what? We apologize, okay?
We don't. Maybe you do.
Okay, listeners. If for those of you who did enjoy today's episode, then feel free to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Yes, do it.
Yes. If you'd like for us to cover a specific story or topic, then email us at ittybittyhorror@gmail.com. Tim reads these emails like, he spends like hours and hours just digging through all the emails, trying to find the juiciest stories. But
I do.
Unfortunately, the inbox is usually empty. So, he basically, he just clocks in fake hours and I have to pay him out for that.
Yeah, it's really, I know, we got to talk about that later. Also, the gay alien, I sometimes outsource to him because he's our intern.
Oh, good. Yeah, that way, yeah, good job. Well, you can also follow us under all social media under Itty Bitty Horror. Also, make sure to check us out on Substack, where we'll have more information and pictures that you obviously can't see on the podcast. We'll have them there. How about that? Go check it out.
How about that? Yeah. Here it's just audio, but there's pictures.
Pictures that we stole online. But anyway.
Oh, well, I think we just borrowed.
We just borrow from JLo's Google Images. You're right.
JLo is responsible for Google Images, so that's true.
That's true. Well, thanks once again.
And remember,
even the smallest chills
can linger long after the
stories
end.
Oh no, what's happening? I'm in La Ciguapa. I said so myself. Anyway, that was exactly like, an hour and 10-ish, 15 minutes.
Wow, exactly an hour and 10-ish or 15 minutes.
That's a very unique little timestamp, okay? A little.
Yeah, I like that you said that's exactly an hour and 10-ish or 15 minutes. Stop recording. You're not going to get B-roll footage out of me.